Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jayom Vishnupada Paramahamsa Priyajakacharya Astadanta Shri Śrīmad Nitya Lila Vivista Om His Divine Grace Slavaya Charnarvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj God's BBD Founder Acharya Jagadguru Patita Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Shri Guru Parampara Ki Jai Grantaraja Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam Ki Jai Sankirtan Yagna Ki Jai Radha Govinda Deva Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jayamudirayet nastapareshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 6, Purusha Shukta confirmed. Today is verse number 30. Tatas cha manava kale Ijare. It's that I with the thing on it is pronounced I-jire or I-jire. Who knows? Rishayo, Pare, Pitaro, Vibudha, Daitya, Manusya, Kratubir, Vibhum, Tatascha Manava, Kale, Ijare, Rishayo Pare, Pitaro Vibhuda Daitya, Manusya Kratubir Vibhum, Ijire, Tatascha Manava Kale, Ijire Rishayo Pare, Pitaro Vibhuda Daitya, Manusya Kratubir Vibhum, Tatascha Manava Kale, Ijire Rishayo Pare, Pitaro Vibhuda Daitya, Manusya Kratubir Vibhum. Chai. Tata, thereafter, Cha, also, Manava, the Manus, the fathers of mankind, Kale, in due course of time, Ijire, worshipped, Rishaya, great sages, Apare, others, Pitara, the forefathers, Vibhuda, the learned scholars, Daitya, great devotees of the demigods, Manusya, mankind, Kratubir Vibhum, by performance of sacrifices, to please the Supreme Lord. Translation. Thereafter the Manus, the fathers of mankind, the great sages, the forefathers, the learned scholars, the Daityas, and mankind perform sacrifices meant to please the Supreme Lord. Please repeat. Thereafter the Manus, the fathers of mankind, the great sages, the forefathers, the learned scholars, the Daityas and mankind performed sacrifices meant to please the Supreme Lord. Purport by His Divine Grace, ISKCON's BBT founder, Acharya Jagadguru Patita Pavana Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Daityas are devotees of the demigods because they want to derive the greatest possible material facilities from them. The devotees of the Lord are Eka Nishta, or absolutely attached to the devotional service of the Lord. Do you think they have the Upakhana Upadesh online? Otherwise, I really would love to read something from that, but that's sitting on my bookshelf all the way at the top of the mountain. 5 flights of stairs up there, you know. Is one of like Chaitanya or Braj Mohan up there, and can they be communicated with? They could bring it down. And these are questions. Okay. Let's start again. The Daityas are devotees of the demigods because they want to derive the greatest possible material facilities from them. The devotees of the Lord are ekanishta, or absolutely attached to the devotional service of the Lord. Therefore, they have practically no time to seek the benefits of material facilities because of their realization of their spiritual identity. They are more concerned with spiritual emancipation than with material comforts. Om Jnanatimrandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. The answer is yes or no. Shri Chaitanya. And there's one of the individuals I previously mentioned just behind you. Shri Chaitanya Mano Vishnam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Slayam Rupagada Mayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagujatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vidam Dam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bando Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Surato Bangor Mama Manda Mater Gati Matsarvasva Padam Bojo Radha Madana Mohano Devyad Vrindaranya Kalpajumadha Śrīmad Ratnagara Singha Śrīmad Radha Shalagovinda Devo Prastalabi Sevyamano Smarami Śrīman Rasa Rasarambi Bamsi Bata Tatastitaha Karshan Venu Svanar Gopir Gopinathas Yestuna Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshvari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sendubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Brinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
21.
Rowing along the wind.
Right now?
Right now. Not right now, but like momentarily. Tatascha manava kale ichire rishayo pare pitaro vibuddha daitya manusya kratubir vibhum. Thereafter, the Manus, the fathers of mankind, the great sages, the forefathers, the learned scholars, the Daityas, and mankind performed sacrifices meant to please the Supreme Lord. So Lord Brahma, the best authority of what's going on in this universe, just like the other day they started building this, they started by putting a wooden platform on the top of the Krishna Hall, previously known as the Bingo Hall. And I alerted to Hansarupa, what's going on here. Are they going to put a lot of weight on this thing and then they might make the roof collapse or. So what was Hansarupa Prabhu's response? I will check with the contractor. And he did, and he was assured, and lo and behold, that big scaffolding, if you look out the window on that side, is supported by beams that were drilled through their building. So the wooden stuff on top of our building is simply to if any kind of small debris, like brick dust or whatever, falls on it or the workers working. So Hansarupa receiving that information and then are actually witnessing the actual situation, our trepidations were relieved. So Lord Brahma is relating to Narada Muni in this chapter, the Purusha Shukta confirmed, for Narada Muni's edification, to allay his wonder, astonishment, and questions, and ultimately to understand the distinction between Lord Brahma and any other powerful demigod, and ultimately the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is very, very important to know the difference between the Supreme Lord and any other, albeit powerful living entity, and what to speak of all other living entities, thus defeating soundly and surely Mayavad philosophy. What's mentioned here. Now, Prabhupada, in this purport, he takes the opportunity to use the facility of the Bhaktivedanta purport to this particular verse to give a definition of the Daityas, or Daityas are families born in the family of the demons. The Daityas and the Danavas were the followers of Hiranyakashipu, and their children were sent to the so-called Gurukul of Sunda and Amarka to learn all types of the ways of the ruthless materialists, such as ruthless ruthless diplomacy, politics, learning such things as how to trick and appease and not trick and to manipulate the opposing party to ultimately do your will, do various types of diplomatic and false behaviors. So false behavior is ultimately desiring such things, being infatuated with such things. Bhogaishvarya, prashakdanam, chetasa. Bhogaishvarya, prashakdanam. In the minds of those who are too attached to material things, to materialism, and bewildered by such things, the resolute devotional service, the resolute determination for devotional service does not take place. Interesting, Prabhupada uses the term for defining the devotee. He says, Eka Nishta, Eke Ha Kuru Nandana, Vyavasyatmika Budhir, Eke Ha Kuru Nandana. What is the translation? How is that said? Resolute in purpose, their aim is one. But how is it? Come on, quick! Somebody, Shastra Sangeet. Let's go. Right. What's the English translation?
Those who are on this path are
resolute in purpose, and their aim is many branched all over the place. Is one. What do you see, Arjuna? Now, who did he ask before that? Duryodhana? Everyone else? What do you say? Oh, I see the tree, I see the sky, I see this, I see that, and I also see the bird and the tree along with everything else. You think you have to take into account everything. First, I have to pass through all levels of material consciousness and have all material experiences, and then from that mature point of experiencing everything and being thoroughly disgusted with it, then I could. That was Prajapati Daksha's argument to Narada Muni. Why did you convert my innocent, tender little boys, to become Paramahamsa, single-pointed brahmachari, sannyasi, and the renounced order of life? You've done a great disservice. They have to experience the misery of material life by being householders, etc., and experiencing the whole sandwich, and then they can renounce, And because you've done this to me not just once, but twice, with 2 sets of sons, therefore you are asadhu, you're not a saintly person. I'm actually a better saintly person because I'm doing my material duties very nicely. So the Prajapati Daksha, in this case, is an example of how deep the bewilderment comes that what does Prabhupada say? That the attached householder sees the sadhu come to beg at his doorstep, that he's dependent on me, I'm better. But ultimately, the sadhu, he's coming so-calledly to beg at the householder's house to give him the opportunity to take his association and ultimately wake him up from the slumber of forgetfulness, of ignorance of his real duty, what is immediate duty in life. Here the devotees are absolutely attached to the devotional service of the Lord. They have practically no time. Prabhupada wrote an essay for one of his pre-ISKCON Back to Godhead magazines called No Time. We go to the big man and tell him that he should perform the duty of hearing Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam and taking the responsibility to teach and propagate it. And his common response is, no time. I have no time because I am so busy with all matters engaged to the family, to the dynasty, to the business, and what do I have, There was one NYPD Lieutenant Lou, in the Times Square subway station. He was there, and there was some little, some kind of things that needed to get worked out, and understanding to be come to, and ultimately a good quantity of bakery prasadam kind of helped him to understand the higher platform and things. But in speaking with him and being nice in the course of making that relationship come to that desired platform, I said, do you believe in God? And he said, I have no time. I got my wife and kids and my job. Maybe when I'm an old man, I could believe in God. That was his response. Yeah, that's what he said.
Should give him
It's a not. It's a. Yeah, we should give him some more.
Yeah, we should. Tell Gopal.
So this is the opposite. The materialists, the non-devotees, they have no time for spiritual life, whereas the real devotee, and Prabhupada said, this is the test. This is the actual test. You can test yourself, and you could observe in others. Are they interested in material activities, or are they proportionately disinterested? Or, in the materialist, when there's an opportunity for sense gratification, looking, talking, smelling, touching, tasting, thinking about, they immediately perk up. Whereas the devotee, when there's an opportunity to hear and chant the glories of the Lord, to hear about his loving transactions with his pure devotees, his wonderful leelas, his saving the devotees and putting down the miscreants, the devotees immediately attracted to the sound of his holy name. We see on Sankirtan that people, I really like the music. I really like the sound is so beautiful. I've had people come up and say that, and objectively, no offense, will not name any names, not now, but over the course of this nearly 9 years, the kirtan wasn't aesthetically or musically judged to be the most beautiful thing in the world, but such persons would come up and say like that. And I would say, well, that is your qualification as a sincere, godly person, that you appreciate the kirtan as something very beautiful. Their spiritual life has begun from that point. So here's the definition of the Daityas: are devotees of the demigods because they want to derive the greatest possible material facilities from them. So, what is it? It's in, I believe, divisions of faith, worship of so-called big man is in the mode of passion. Like Prabhupada remarked that one businessman in Calcutta during World War II had a picture of Adolf Hitler and he was doing puja. Why? Because of the war. It's like Indian people, especially in Calcutta, which was the seat of the British Raj, didn't like the British, quit India, get out, we must be free from British rule. So, who was one of the first countries that Hitler declared war on? Yay, Great Britain. So, one who is the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And not only that, from the so-called ideological point of view of the businessman in Calcutta, but also he was making a lot of money because Hitler had declared war on, Germany had declared war on Great Britain. So therefore, or we see somebody in a big position and we want to butter him up and kowtow and sort of like, because we're going to get some benefits being from the big person. So the Bhagavad Gita says the results of such worship or such austerity of worshiping such personalities, or if one has performed austerity, like in the Maha case of Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyakashipu terrorizes the universe, becomes the great, he seizes the position of Indra, Chandra, Surya, and he himself is controlling heat and light and water, everything himself, just by the mere movement of his eyebrows. If unfavorable movement of his eyebrows, the demigods would cringe. Oh, he's going to severely chastise us. So finally, when Hiranyakashipu, when the Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam was enjoying the final fight with Hiranyakashipu, there's a description in that 8th chapter, 7th canto, Lord Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam slays the king of the demons. Oh, my dear Yudhishthira, when the Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam gave a chance for Hiranyakashipu to slip from his hands, just like a snake playing with a mouse, allows the mouse to slip, you know. They thought the demigods who were hiding from behind the clouds, waiting for Hiranyakashipu's death with great anticipation and enthusiasm. If they were very much afraid that if Hiranyakashipu saw them just like waiting for his death, he would become very angry and took great revenge upon them. Therefore, they were very much afraid. Similarly, the great sages were praying to Lord Varaha, you know, in his fight with Hiranyaksha, the dearmost brother of Hiranyakashipu. Was he the elder brother? Elder brother, my elder brother. He was born a few minutes before me, right? Anyway, so pray dispatch him, play with him no more. Prabhupada gives another definition. The demons, or the Daityas, they want this. Oh, this was the argument that Mohini Murti used to charm the Daityas, saying these demigods, they're very, very impatient. You know, let them have the nectar now. You know, because you demons are very, very noble and very broad-minded and very magnanimous. Therefore, it will be to your credit, and you will be glorified by allowing these miserly demigods to get the nectar first. You know, because they're completely bewildered by Mohini Murti's so-called womanly beauty. Mohini Murti is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We see in the case of Narayan Rishi, who was it? Indra sent his Cupid and most beautiful society girls that try to break his vows. That's another thing. If someone is really trying to get free from the influence of sex attraction and Cupid's arrow, then the demigods, they become, oh my goodness, you know, because Atmavan Manyate Jagat, we came to this position by performing austerities and penances that we're great demigods, pious activities. So somebody else is doing, and there's competition, there's not enough room up here, there's only a certain number of us can have it, not, you know, me first, not you, then we try to break that person's austerity so that, our position is secure. That is the material world. Whereas the spiritual world is completely the opposite, and that is the real inner spirit of Harinam Sankirtan and distribution of pure devotional service, which Srila Prabhupada says is the only way to control the mind, is to always be thinking how to spread the Sankirtan movement, or how to always be thinking how to do real ultimate Shreyas, Shreya Karaiva, the ultimate good. The ultimate good, what is it? Kasyapa Muni, he's pleased with Devahuti and gave up her princely position and served him humbly, and to her appearance and her clothes, everything became diminished. Said, I have achieved perfection in devotional service, you know, and now I'm offering, even though you're not completely qualified, I'm offering these things to you. Just see how nice they are. And Prabhupada says that bestowance of the facility of pure devotional service and love of Godhead and to others is the greatest way of showing love to those we presume to love. I love you, really. You know, Prabhupada, this one Swami, he was a Hatha Yoga guru, Swami Satchidananda. He came to visit Prabhupada actually, and when he was recuperating from his stroke in the Beth Israel Hospital at 16th Street and First Avenue, north of the Bhakti Center, in May of 1967. Swami, I love you. Yes, I love you too, but not this skin love. So, those we presume to love. We were interviewed by Kastuba and Raghunath on their Wisdom of the Sages, and the topic was Aintra Prabhu, and they really kind of pumped me for many things. And we concluded the program by reading the final saying, or the saying that Inder chose to put on his final album that was released. Said that 24-hour Kirtan Mandali is dedicated to the propagation of Hari Nam Sankirtan, the congregational chanting of the holy names of God. It is unequivocally affirmed by all authorities and revealed scriptures that in this present age of Kali, the age of quarrel and strife, the only way to self-purification and complete freedom from anxiety and ultimate happiness is the performance of Yuga Dharma Harinam Sankirtan. Propagation of Yuga Dharma Harinam Sankirtan is the perfection of yoga, the perfection of, I wish I could remember it exactly, perfection of yoga, the perfection of austerities, cultivation of knowledge, maybe one or two other things. And by that, and because of that, it is the greatest way to show love to one's fellow living beings, and it is the best course to achieve the highest plane of love of Godhead, or love and reciprocation, Vraja Prema Bhakti. So Mohini Murti, the difference, that story. The difference between the devotees and the non-devotees, they want their sense gratification at once, immediately. Whereas the devotees, they, quite to the contrary of not wanting any sense gratification for themselves, they're prepared to undergo all types of tribulations, seemingly, what is it? In Madhavendra Puri, Lord Chaitanya is just remarking in wonderstruck amazement to Lord Nityananda, just see the greatness of this personality, all the hardship he underwent to satisfy his Lord Gopal in Vrindavan, who now, of course, is Srinathji in Natwar. There he is, the lifter of Govardhan Hill. So Prabhupada says the devotee is never fazed by any amount of austerity, obscurity, disregard, being ignored, all different things that might, materialists, if we're not like glorified, if people aren't noticing us, if we feel like our name and fame is being neglected, when we become very disturbed, and et cetera, et cetera. But the devotee, he is so much fixed in Krishna's reciprocation that he doesn't care about the so-called morality, immorality, the being praised or blamed, or honor and dishonor in this world. He couldn't care less. He's simply completely absorbed, moment to moment, in realizing the pleasure of Krishna. There was one devotee in New Zealand, I just heard his testimony on Prabhupada Memories by Siddhanta. His name was Kedara Prabhu. Kedara means name for Krishna, who is easily pleased by his devotees. And he joined when he was very young. He was actually still in high school, going to a teenager. Mukunda Datta Prabhu in Los Angeles was blessed with that unique facility also. He was 9 years old riding bikes with his friends on the street that he lived, Watsika Avenue, Watsika Boulevard. You ever see Mukunda Datta in Los Angeles? Yes, but he maybe comes and visits. That's right. So, and then he's initiated when he's 15 years old in 1976. So, what a good fortune that the devotees move in from La Cienega to Watsika in 1970, and he's 9 years old riding bicycles with his friends, and now he's such an extraordinary, gifted personality, Prabhupada's disciple, and such a learned scholar and knower of all the Vaishnava scriptures, and so wonderful in his presentation. So there's a nice story that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur describes that we can understand the difference between real devotion and false devotion, and what false devotion is actually the underlying motivation is, and how dangerous it is, and how we should be very, very sincere in our motivation. It's called rowing along the wind. A landlord once had a sycophantic servant. Does everybody know what a sycophant is? That means someone who's just gonna... Anyway, you'll see what a sycophant is by seeing the behavior here of this so-called servant, who was only interested in grabbing something for his own sense gratification by flattering his master. One day, the landlord asked the sycophant, "Could you please tell me what kind of vegetable is the potato?" The sycophant replied with an uneasy gesture and folded hands before the landlord. "O Lord, I pray that your honor please narrate the nature of potato. Please let us hear your wise words in this matter." Then the landlord said, "Potato is the most delicious of all vegetables in this present age." Even before the landlord could finish his statement, the sycophant butted in. "Yes, my lord, really delicious, excellently delicious, pleasantly delicious, highly tasteful, and dainty. It is said that this round potato, boiled in rice, boiled in water, fried, mixed up in a sabji, put in a soup or dal, either in pickled condiment or in rich gravy or kafka, everywhere, in every recipe, this round potato is omnipresent. Is there any other vegetable comparable to it? It is simply second to none, unparalleled." Then the landlord rejoined, "Whatever you say, I should like to assert that potato is very agitating and very dull, in spite of the fact that it is tasteful." Immediately the sycophant blustered, "Oh yes, my lord, for sure. It is really an agitatingly agitating vegetable, very hot, excessively..." This is a potato. What an exaggeration. "Excessively passionate, very difficult to cool down. My lord, we are being plagued by a new wave of unknown diseases nowadays. This is all due to this round potato. Maybe this coronavirus is because we're eating potatoes. All sorts of flatulence, cholera, diarrhea, diabetes, phthisis are resulting from this round potato. Do you know, my lord, potato is certainly the root cause of all these troubles." Then the landlord asked the fawning servant, "Well, what is your opinion of eggplant?" The sycophant replied, "Oh Lord, let us first hear you, please. What is eggplant like?" The landlord began, "There is nothing bad about an eggplant. As far as I know, eggplant is a nice vegetable." Again the servant spoke, "Yes, Lord, let us look at it. There is hardly another beautiful vegetable like it. What else is required when we get 2 pieces of fried eggplant? Then even butter is not comparable to it." This is perhaps the most ridiculous statement that he makes here, coming. "When one has nothing else in his house, only 1 piece of eggplant can serve the purpose of maintaining the prestige of the householder." "You can roast it, fry it, cook it in a sabji, prepare a chutney. Any way you like, the eggplant proves itself somewhat extraordinary among all vegetables." An excellent creation of the Supreme Godhead indeed. After hearing all this, the landlord replied, anyhow, there is no nutritious value in an eggplant. The sycophant said, oh my lord, of course. That's why it is called bigun, which means no value at potential value. But bigun, the eggplant, is much more inferior to that. An eggplant gives more itching trouble in the mouth than any wild turnip or root. Eggplant is the root cause of so many troubles. Eggplant carries eternal bad luck. That's why it is often roasted before frying. The landlord then retorted, saying, you are a very strange fellow. When I say potato is good, you also repeat, yes, potato is very good. And when I say it is bad, then you also start pleading that it is very, very bad. When I said eggplant is good, then your appreciation for eggplant knew no bounds. And when I said eggplant is bad, you depreciated it as if it should never even be considered as a vegetable. Don't you possess any personal integrity? With folded hands and a faltering voice, the sycophant explained, and this is maybe the first time he's been honest in his entire life, oh my Lord, please have mercy. Please forgive my offenses. Or as we make the Vaishnava joke, please accept my offenses and forgive my obeisances. But to be truthful, I am not a servant of a potato, nor of an eggplant. I am simply your servant, my Lord. Whatever you say, my Lord, I must say likewise. Potato will not provide me with a monthly wage packet. And eggplant is not going to give me a job for my livelihood. I am your servant, so my Lord's voice should be my voice. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, whose disappearance day is coming on Saturday, January 2nd. Some people always row with the wind for their own advantage and express their concocted opinions only motivated by their own selfish desires for gaining reputation. Wonderful. Sometimes they pretend to be devotees of Lord Sri Chaitanya, or patriots, social leaders, or simply unmindful lovers, or many other disguises. Basically, they are impersonalists, or in other words, they do not believe in the eternal holy name, form, qualities, associates, and pastimes of the Supreme Lord. Any appreciation or eulogizing of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu expressed by such persons is simply their verbal expression, as they are anxious to pose themselves as devotees before the common people. Many such persons eulogize Lord Sri Chaitanya Dev with an ulterior motive of attracting some sort of honor and respect from a large community of Vaishnavas, but they are not at all interested in relishing the nectar of true instructions bestowed by Lord Sri Chaitanya Dev, who depreciated such renowned ideologies as Buddhism, Sankaracharya philosophy, and the doctrines of fruitive work, mundane knowledge, and meditational yogic philosophy. Those motivated persons do not accept Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's advice to worship Lord Vishnu only and to consider all other forms of demigods and goddesses as subordinate to Lord Vishnu. As many paths, as many ways, we can worship Durga, Ganesh, Lord Shiva. It is all one. Nor can they endorse wholeheartedly the devotional practices of religion, wealth, lust, and liberation, and all types of mixed devotional service. This only happens because, as there are many followers of Lord Chaitanya, similarly there exist a number of fanatics in the line of Sankaracharya, Buddha, and a few others. These were contemporaries. Madhavirya Jina, Kumarila Bhatta, Kapila the atheist, and the like, who preached non-devotional doctrines among the people. In this event, all motivated persons consider it beneficial to their self-interest of earning name and fame and reputation to preach the doctrines of other communities than those of Lord Chaitanya, since those non-devotional communities command a wide populace. Those who are devoid of the real urge for inquiring into the realm of eternal and absolute truth will always hush up. The basic doctrines as propagated by Lord Sri Chaitanya Dev. Another story is Bhagavan Pandit becomes a ghost under intrigue. I'll tell that one from verbatim. But there was once a king who had a very good Brahmin advisor who wouldn't take any salary and would always tell the king the plain truth. His name was Bhagavan Pandit. So because of that, all of the king's ministers became very, very envious. You know, because if he's telling the king the plain truth, and the ministers who want to like try to manipulate the king so they can like augment their own name, fame, profit, etc., then this Bhagavan is not very good. So all the ministers got together and they hatched a plot. They hatched the plot. You know? And the plot was that we'll make the king understand that Bhagavan Pandit had died. And because Bhagavan, you know, the king lived in a palace, had a moat, you know, and guards, you know, and only, you know, so nobody could come inside unless they were authorized. So they told the palace security guard that Bhagavan Pandit is no longer allowed entrance into the palace. And so after some days, when the king didn't see Bhagavan Pandit, all the ministers came and you know, put on this drama, you know, very sad and false tears. My dear king, Bhagavan Pandit has expired. What terrible news. And the king, he, after some time, he wanted to go out and, you know, go out of the palace. And there's actually a plague right now. It's not a good time to go out. There's coronavirus outside. You should stay in lockdown. And so after like, however long, the king was like, I don't forget it. I got to get out of here. I'm going out. And maybe a month and a half later. And so the Bhagavan Pandit, who was very anxious, he wanted to, you know, he saw the king coming out, but then the ministers, seeing Bhagavan Pandit, they made such a tight human barricade that Bhagavan Pandit couldn't come anywhere near. Finally, Bhagavan Pandit, he climbed up into a tree and shouted, "Oh king, here I am, your Bhagavan Pandit." So what did all the ministers do? The king looked and saw Bhagavan Pandit up in the tree. "Oh king, Bhagavan Pandit, after his death, has now become a ghost. And he's calling for you from the street. Let's quickly move aside. Run away." And the king, all his ministers and all the people he trusted, and they're all saying, he said, Bhagavan Pandit, and he's been dead for a month and a half. Bhagavan Pandit has died, has now become a ghost. So Bhagavan Pandit, just see the intrigue of these like ulteriorly motivated people that even under their diplomacy, Bhagavan Pandit has become a ghost. This is exactly the condition in human society amongst the so-called scholars, educators, scientists, political leaders who are coming out and saying that God and religion is dead. And as soon as there's any type of religious sentiment, they want to just destroy it. They want to hush it up right away. Those who are devoid of the real urge for inquiring into the realm of eternal and absolute truth will always hush up the basic doctrines as propagated by Lord Chaitanya. These people are neither sincere followers of Lord Chaitanya nor of Sankaracharya. In fact, they are all basically selfish opportunists trying to gratify their own senses. Mr. Eggplant and Potato Servant. These opportunists are of the opinion all doctrines are good, but their real nature is exposed whenever it is clearly proved that love for Lord Sri Krishna can never be equated with the non-devotional practices for gaining positions in the fields of religion, mundane wealth, material enjoyment, and liberation. Any attempt in synthesizing all doctrines, irrespective of their intrinsic merit, is hypocrisy. This was very boldly expressed by Lord Chaitanya with reference to his reflections to one of his own devotees, Sri Mukundadatta Thakur, and these are quoted from Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Whenever that rascal Mukunda goes to the Mayavadis, he becomes like them, talking according to their theory. Whenever he studies the Yoga Vashishta with Advaita Acharya, he dances in ecstasy, holding straw in his teeth. And going to these other Mayavad sampradayas, when he speaks, not only does he neglect bhakti, he always attacks bhakti. One who says there is something better than bhakti is beating me. That person has made offenses to devotional service, and due to this, he will never attain Krishna. Most of the professional narrators of scriptural and mythological stories, speakers, writers, authors, etc., try to entertain common people through their deliberations and performances only to attract some sort of material gains and fortunes. There's a story called For Ana Bhava that they're talking scholars, but also Sahajya sideshow men, showing so-called ecstatic symptoms, and people would pay money. It would be like part of a show. And so I forget the exact scenario, but one group wanted to hire another Sahajya showman to overturn or take it higher than another show. It's like two shows were competing, and we'll give you this amount of money and you display this amount of bhava. And it was like in the hot sun, and he went into like a swoon and this and that, and it didn't last long enough for the people who paid him to do this, and because he couldn't tolerate being in the hot sun. And they said, well, wait a minute, we expected it to be longer and more dramatic. And his response was, what bhava do you expect for only 4 annas? You should have paid me more money. In fact, their expositions of devotional scriptures are not truly expressive of their real love and devotion to the Supreme Lord. Because of their realization of their spiritual identity, they are more concerned with spiritual emancipation than with material comforts. Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments? Divyangi, Hare Krishna.
Referring to the story about Hiranyakashipu and demigods, I was just thinking why demigods were afraid of Hiranyakashipu if they knew, if they devotees of the Lord, why they would be afraid.
Well, if we're devotees of the Lord, why are we're put in a situation where, no, not why. Devotees are it's the Lord's Leela to protect and save the devotees. So if there's no feeling of trepidation and adventure, you look at the Pandavas and Mother Kunti, they went through so many different things. Her ultimate prayer at the end, when everything was settled up and seemingly peaceful, now you're leaving us. Better these calamities are here again and again, so we have opportunity to pray to you. It also reveals the mentality of the demigods, that they're not 100% faithful, like in the case of Prahlad Maharaj Ambarish, who was so much Haridas Thakur, confident of the Lord's protection, that under extreme duress, their position didn't waver at all. Hiranyakashipu was totally amazed, by whose power whose power is allowing you to defy my rule? It was just bewildering. He just couldn't figure it out. It was just too much. So that's a good question. That reveals the incompleteness in the devotional service of the demigods. But also for the sake of Leela, the Lord wanted to have some fun. But and the Lord is doing that to shake up the demigods, just like we're in the devotees in this material world. We're trying to be devotees, So, yasyaham anugranami. When I see that someone is sincere but still attached, then I create a situation by which their material protective agents, are compromised. Then they're forced. Like Srila Prabhupada even said of his spiritual master through his godbrother, Bhakti Pragna Keshava Maharaj, he forced me to give up this material life. We even see in exalted literatures, and Prabhupada actually took from the Vilapa Kusha Manjali of Raghunath Das Goswami, the verse where Raghunath Das Goswami, I was unwilling to drink the nectar of devotional service consisting of renunciation. But Rupa Goswami has made me drink, therefore he is an ocean of mercy and I must offer my obeisances onto his lotus feet. So Prabhupada took that, and you could listen to the October 1968 in Seattle. It's in the festival's disappearance day of Bhakti Pragna Keshava Maharaj. So we're drafting a letter of condolence, expressing our profound bereavement on the passing of His Holiness Bhakti Pragna Keshava Maharaj in our Seattle branch under the presidency of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. And he had all the disciples sign. You can hear all the pens scratching. And we are composing in this regard. And Bhakti Pragna put the name of Bhakti Pragna Keshava. He's an ocean of mercy and like that. So yeah, it's a good question. And there are different angles of vision and different lessons for different persons in such an action of the Lord. But from the Lord's sake, he was just having fun. And the ultimate reason for this whole pastime was that the Lord wanted to have a good fight. And who could give the Lord a good fight except one of his own men? So Jai and Vijay are cursed by the Kumaras, and they were given a choice. You can spend 7 births in the material world as favorable to me, or you could spend 3 births unfavorable and you'll come back quick. Well, we want to come back quickly. So, and that unfavorable was Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha, Ravana, Kumbhakarna, and Shishupal and Dantavakra. And they had to do an encore performance as who is it? Jagai and Madai. And then we did a play in 55th Street. Jagai and Madai, boom, boom, boom. I was one of the village people. Wow, look at these guys, And the famous Lokamangala, of the Vaikuntha players, who did Ravana and all, and he did an amazing demon. He was Ravana, if you ever saw the video. And so he was a very obnoxious and real life believable. Who was the one the real bad one who threw the Madai, who threw the pot? Anyway, whatever. So, all right. Anything else? We've gone over time. Yes.
Yaksha was the younger brother.
Because he came out of the womb first, so that means his embryo manifested second, right? Yeah. That's another aspect of how Western culture does things backwards or understands things backwards in Vedic culture, that twin comes out older, younger. All right, thank you very much. And again, today is the Margashirsha Mas Purnima. It is the day that the Katyayani Brat concluded and Krishna appeared to fulfill the gopis' desire. And you please, everyone, read that chapter. I believe it's chapter 22 in the Krishna book. Hare Krishna. Mataraj Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Bol.